Hey guys, so welcome back to Tool Time John. It's been a minute. Last week, all of my vehicles decided that it's going to give me issues. So obviously I'm blessed to have these problems, right? There are folks that don't have vehicles or, whatever the case may be. So I'm blessed to have these problems. One of the things that was an issue, is a pretty easy one, was the Jeep. If you've been following along, I've had 4 different batteries in 4 years on the Jeep. And as it turns out, it was the alternator the whole time. And I replaced the alternator and got a new battery, and I haven't had any issues since. And so only time will tell if this replacement alternator will do the job and keep my system properly charged and all that. And pretty simple swap out, so that was an easy one. The second thing that happened was on my wife's 2011 Lexus RX350. I was driving it around and I parked to go inside and get a drink, and when I came out I saw all this oil in front of the vehicle. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And after doing some looking and diagnosing, I came to find out that it was the oil cooler pipe that's at the front of the engine, and it blew. So I ordered another one, and the replacement part looks like it's an upgrade. It's all metal versus the OEM one that had some rubber hose, in between and things like that. Man, that was something. I mean, if my hands were smaller, it would have been easier to do, but there are studs that you have to remove where the nuts go onto to hold the oil cooler pipe in. But the studs have to be removed because when they're in, you cannot remove the oil cooler pipe from its mounting position. And so it was a real pain in the butt. And then getting the studs out was easier than trying to get them in, because you want to finger start them, right? And the space that you have to work in is so incredibly small. I mean, it's a real pain. There are some videos on YouTube that show you how to do it. And if you want me to show you on the Lexus, I can do that, so let me know in the comments. So the third thing, and mind you, this all happened in the same week. My truck decided that it was not going to hold coolant. What triggered it was the engine was starting to run hot. I was like, what is going on? So obviously, I checked the coolant and the overflow, and there wasn't any in there. And I was on the way to an appointment, so I saw a grocery store and got several gallons of distilled water, filled it up, engine wasn't overheating, great. Finally got it home, and it blew out all the water in front of the truck. I had to use the truck, so I kept filling distilled water into the overflow, and it worked okay, but that's not a good solution long term. So this truck has about 193,000 miles on it, has the OEM water pump. That's pretty good to last that long. So I'm going to replace that, and while I'm under there, I'm going to replace the thermostat as well. Not really sure what the condition of the hose, the serpentine belt, or the AC belt is. So, we're going to have to see. But this is a 2006 Chevy Silverado with a 5.3 liter V8, rear wheel drive, nothing special. So, we're just going to go ahead and do that now. Got to remove this and this air ductwork so we can get access down in there. These are 8mm bolts basically to loosen everything up. So just pull that off of there. Work this loose from the throttle body. Disconnect this hose holder. There we go. There we go. Next, we're going to take the serpentine belt off, and we're going to take tension off the tensioner so that we can get this belt off. If you're like me and your truck is kind of faded with how the belt routes around the pulleys and idlers and all that kind of stuff, take a picture. So this is a 15 millimeter bolt, and you'll want to move clockwise and loosen that up from there, and then just take the belt off. And you want to inspect your belt for cracks and things like that in case it needs to be replaced. And in this case, this belt looks pretty good. So next thing I did is remove the radiator hose, the upper radiator hose, and the two heater hoses that go into the water pump. And I also took off the tensioner so that we can get the water pump out. Now, I don't have a mechanical fan, so I don't have to worry about removing the fan clutch off the water pump. Basically, all I need to do is pull the water pump out. Now, the tensioner bolts are all 15 millimeters, so that made it a lot easier, so I don't have to worry about a whole mess of sockets. But before I do that, I'm going to take the thermostat housing off. I don't know if you can see that or not. Right down there before taking the water pump out. There's 6 bolts holding the water pump in. They're 10 millimeter, and I already broke them loose. So I'm about to pull these out. Really hate dropping stuff. 3 on. It should pull right out, and it does. And then I've got to remove the gaskets that are still on the block. And if you don't have a pick set, pretty cheap, Harbor Freight. Ew. Yeah, it's pretty crusty. Yep, I imagine these things failed. I'm not sure about the water pump itself. I got to clean all that mess up, get a nice surface, and then I can put the new one on. Old versus new. I mean, it's the right part, but will this one last me 193,000 miles like this one did? I don't know. We shall see. So that's kind of interesting. These are the new gaskets. This is the original gasket. And you can tell that rubber is one piece. Goes across the metal here, but there's no gap there. Very interesting. See if that'll hold and not fall off. I'm going to put it into the deal here. Okay, now that that's in, just gotta snug them down before I torque them down. Make sure the bolts are fully seated. Every time I ring that little idler pulley, think of For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, first pass is 11 foot-pounds. Then 22 foot-pounds. Okay, done. Next is the thermostat. That's the new one. That's the old one. Huh. A little bit different design. But what's important is that thing right there and that right there to line it up inside the thermostat housing. So break that loose. Get all this old gas material out of there, crusty stuff. Actually, that feels pretty smooth. So I'll put the new one in. Fits in there rather nicely. They also provided a gasket, so I guess I'll use that. Put this dude back on. I think that was a 10. Yep, that was a 10. Torque that down to 11. That's it. Not a whole lot. Then we got to put the tensioner back on, and that's the 15 millimeter. Long bolts go on top, short bolt goes on the bottom. 37 foot-pounds of torque on those tensioner bolts. Alright. Now we got to put all the hoses back on. And the serpentine belt. Fill it up with coolant and see what happens. Uh-oh, leaking out of somewhere. I got it all filled up with coolant. The leak that I thought was happening was actually this overflow pipe, which runs up underneath the coolant reservoir, and I had to take the air box out because I was like, what the heck is leaking? So anyway, that's what it was. I didn't have a funnel to add coolant and distilled water to this, and it was just running out the side and down the hose. So that's what it was. But I got the truck running up to operating temperature. So far it's not blowing out any coolant. I think the job's done. I'll put a link to the eBay seller that I bought the water pump from. It cost me $59.99 with free shipping. You can't beat that. From what I could tell on their site, they're American made, or at least an American seller. So want to support that. The part got here real quickly. The gaskets, everything was included. The only thing that wasn't included was a thermostat, but I think that's, you know, really up to the buyer. You may want a specialty one instead of a standard one. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, eBay is a pretty good place to get parts for me. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, just kind of giving my 2 cents. On oil and stuff like that for the oil change, I actually got it from Walmart. When your vehicle calls for 6 quarts of oil, you end up buying a big jug, which is 5 quarts, and then you have to buy another quart. And oftentimes, if you find that 5-quart jug on sale and you get that additional quart, it costs about half of what the 5-quart jug costs. And so I bought this 6-quart capacity Havoline from Walmart, and it was cheap. It was like under 20 bucks. So I'm able to do the truck and I'm able to do my Jeep. So 20 bucks for oil, and then, you know, whatever it costs for an oil filter, less than 10 bucks. So about 30 bucks for me to do the oil change myself. And I have no idea how much it costs to change oil. You know, other places I've heard 100 bucks or more, depending on where you go. So if you have any experience with that, let me know. Put in the comments. Now I got to do an oil change and tire rotation. Yay me. Thanks for tuning in.